There was a battleship floating in space. You could hear screams from the passengers. "Help us!" Another voice yells out, "It's coming." More screams in the background saying, "We're all going to die," and to close the door quickly. The last desperate cries told the thing to not come any closer and that they need someone to save them. As the last survivors perish from this unknown attack, the ship becomes quiet again. During the dark corridor halls of the ship, there looked like some type of infestation amongst the floor and walls. There were footsteps echoing in the corridor. An elite 5-man infantry group was making their way through the ship. They could hear a person speaking through the ship channels telling all troops on board to gather ASAP in the captain's room. The voice echoes the same thing to all personnel on the ship. One of the guards gets annoyed at the message. The other soldier questions if they should just listen to the broadcast and follow the orders. The annoyed guard tells his comrade to just ignore that selfish bastard request. He is just trying to save only himself. We move as planned, announcing to all the infantrymen within his party. He tells his group that they must save as many people as possible and that this is an order. The guards rally behind their captain and follow his orders. The captain yells in the next room, "Is there anyone there?" He hears a faint voice coming from the next room. The voice asks the guards to save them, begging them to save them as they continue to cough in agony. The guards peek around the corner where they heard the voice and see something straight out of a horror scene. Mountains of dead bodies stacked on top of each other. One of the guards gets sick and now is unsure after seeing this horrible sight. The captain tells him to get a grip because they are there to save people. The captain tells his men to find any survivors quickly as possible, while the other one in the back tells the group that he will watch their back. One of the guards asks again if there is anyone there. They hear a voice coming from the pile of dead bodies. The voice tells them to get them out. The closest guard starts trying to dig the person out and tells them to hang in there a little bit longer. The guard gets paralyzed in fear of what he sees right in front of him. A monster staring at him with a gaze that could leave you petrified. The voice they heard, who they thought was human, was actually the voice coming from this alien-like monster hiding with the dead bodies. The monster tells them that he needs saving and for someone to help him. The guard yells out "monster," which suddenly catches the attentions of the guards. The guards turn to see their fellow partyman snatched by the monster, and now he is being torn into two. The infantrymen now staring in complete shock of seeing a two-legged monster, while the monster stares back at them as well. They yell "enemy sighted" and started to open fire at the monster direction. The monster makes a quick leap towards on the walls and starts to scale it. The monster does a quick evade move type, trying to dodge the incoming barrage of bullets. Some of the bullets actually land on target, causing the monster to get annoyed. The monster turns and does a quick attack, releasing an acidic blood from his mouth towards the infantryman in its path. One of the guards gets hit by the attack, yelling out acidic blood, while his arm and half his face is being melted from the scourging liquid. One of the guards tells him to calm down and to inject the antidote immediately while running towards the injured guard. The injured guard misfires his gun and hits his would-be savior. The guard that got shot falls to the ground and starts to lose consciousness. He hears his comrades fighting unconsciously while he's still out from being hit by his comrade's stray bullet. A voice from his bodysuit tells him emergency treatment is completed and that the personnel needs to move to the medical room immediately. He starts to open his eyes only to see one of his comrades being devoured by the alien monster. He gets pissed and from witnessing this and starts cursing in his mind about the monster. Due to frustration, he grabs a grenade, attempting to do a last attempt suicide. The monster with quick reaction grabs the soldier arm, forcing him to release the grenade from activating. Before the monster could attack the soldier lying on the ground, the slime on his shoulder stops him. The soldier witnesses the slime and monster communicating to each other. The slime falls down off the monster's shoulder and approaches the soldier. In one quick moment, the slime leaps towards the helpless soldier while spreading itself. The slime drowns the head of the soldier, causing his face to dissolve in an unimaginable pain you wouldn't be able to describe. The slime finishes up and lets out a burp while leaping back on the shoulder of what seems like his other alien counterpart. They both head out and approach a door in the next hallway. The alien holding one of the arms of the dead soldiers tries to use his handprints to gain access into the next room. The AI voice responds back telling the user is unregistered and they are denied access. The slime on his shoulder pulls out the grenade the soldier was holding, hinting for the monster to use the grenade in order to get through the door. The monster uses the grenade and creates a loud explosion through the ship. A big hole is now visible, which nothing now stands between the monster and anyone else who was attempting to escape. The monster looks in the back only to see two guards cowering in fear of what stands before them. The monster starts approaching the crew members while they let out their last remaining screams before getting devoured. The monster tells us that he is a hostile alien life form and that he consumes anything and can continue to grow endlessly. Deep into space there was a cargo vessel floating at bay. There was something dark and sinister starting to spawn within its cargo. He doesn't understand how he died previously, but now he is reborn again. Our protagonist, unknown of his whereabouts, has been reincarnated as a hostile alien life form from a previous survival game he has played. In this game, you can choose a various of races that exist in the vast space. It's an RPG-based survival type game where you have an option to select any race in space, and with your selection, you can evolve as you survive through the game. With my list of various options to choose, sometimes I'm a metallic gremlin tearing apart human spaceships until the air pressure from space crumbles the ship. Other times I'm a mutant monster killing wave after waves of infantrymen. Or I may become a hive mind, conquering planets and laying waste to civilizations. In this game I played every last nightmarish cosmic creature, but through all the selections I've only been attached to one race that I can relate to oneself. A reflection of my inner soul that's always been there. In humanity viewpoint I may be deemed as an unidentified, aggressive, space morph, or UASM for short. To me I call this particular race an amorph, based of your typical generic creature from Aliens. A race that can continuously strengthen itself using the genetic information from the victims it consumes. To the average person this race selection looks extremely overpowered, or OP for short. But due to the game's insane early difficulty and the inability to communicate or cooperate with other races made this the worst fringe selection in the whole game. I mean, it was close to impossible to survive. The reason this race became my favorite from the selections was simple to me. It was due to the capabilities to freely evolve and grow stronger from your choices and ultimately your own will to survive. This captivated me. A blue screen appeared before me. It told me my race, which was an unidentified aggressive space morph. My status was listed as hatchling and my objective was to survive. The trait given to me was hypersenses. The MC starts to ponder of everything while looking at the blue screen. Taking everything in, he let out a sign thinking this is the result. He think due to him liking the Amorph or AlienX race so much, he can only blame himself. This is his new start. He decides not to dwell on this unfortunate fate, and worrying about it now won't do any good. He starts to itch, insanely causing his skin to shed. He didn't realize shedding skin would be so itchy and exhausting. First things first, our MC tells himself he need to find something to eat and that he could die any moment from starvation. He starts to explore his surroundings, only realizing from the supplies by itself. He seems to be on a megacorp or union ship. He knows if he gets caught now he will be killed immediately. The MC starts to use one of his unique abilities, hypersenses. His senses starts to pick up any locations nearest to him for any type of movement or noise. He continues to scan the area until something notifies his senses. He quickly hurries to the source and climbs on a green storage unit which contained a passcode to open. The MC uses a basic code 1234 and the storage unit unlocks. He couldn't believe they would use such a simple code and decides to unwrap whatever unfamiliar smell that notified his senses. It seems to be a chocolate bar that alerted him. He decides to bite into the chocolate bar only to complain that it tastes like rubber erasers, but at least it's some type of nutrients. A noise was heard behind our MC, causing him to react swiftly to the sound. He quickly uses his tail to attack the cockroach, piercing it in the process. He tosses the roach into his mouth, liking the taste of it. A system notification has appeared. Predation effect has been triggered. Wing gene fragment has been acquired successfully. He has now gotten a new trait from the cockroach. Wings. The system notification gives the MC an option on applying wings. After he reads the screen, he thinks to himself that he is lucky to get a gene fragment this quickly. Gene fragments are the core as operating as an amorph. The more fragments he acquires, the more he can evolve as a stronger organism. He decides to select the wings option on the screen. Soon wings starts to develop onto his back. They grew full-sized rapidly, and now he wonders how does he move them. He thinks since his wings are on his back, then maybe moving his trapezius muscles might help. He imagines moving his back on his body, and suddenly his wings starts flapping. He gets the hang of it and starts to take off, levitating through the air, surveying his surroundings. After getting the hang of flying, he decides to go back to the chocolate bars. Our MC figure's energy consumption is greater than what he thought. While peeking over the storage unit, he sees more cockroaches from the distance. To properly control his wings, he figures there is a skill he needs no matter what. He decides this is his first goal. With his set goal in mind, he starts killing the cockroaches. One by one he was killing the cockroaches throughout the cargo ship. Number 21 RMC called out, but still no results. He wonders, and they are starting to taste like a burnt pancake. A system notification starts to appear in front of him. He has just acquired a new gene fragment, chitinous exoskeleton. Analyzing the new trait, RMC knows that a chitinous exoskeleton defense increases according to the growth level of oneself. He thinks that it is a good trait to have, but it's completely useless in his current state. RMC knows that right now he needs to secure a robust vitality in order to survive his current situation, but it isn't showing up. Robust vitality reduces one's energy consumption and slows aging. It's a common passive trait in insects and plants. With this, he won't be obsessed with food and could start focusing on other tasks. Ultimately, he needs to catch a lot more roaches in order to survive. Panicking while looking for them, he decides to change locations. He leaps off the edge of the storage unit and flies the air. He wonders at this rate, could he really be deemed an honorable amorph based off his traits? While flying through the air, he spots more cockroaches from the distance. He quickly dives towards them. The cockroach at the last second, seeing the incoming attacks, gets flattened by RMC. RMC starts eating the cockroach and sees the other one getting away. Realizing he can't miss this opportunity, he dives towards it, causing him to hit his head on the storage unit as it tries to escape through the cracks. He quickly uses his tail, impaling the cockroach to it. Like a shish kebab, he puts the cockroach into his mouth and consumes it. Predation effect has been triggered. A system notification has appeared telling him that he now has acquired the gene fragment Robust Vitality. It asks him if he wants to strip this trait from the cockroach. He quickly hit yes, happily accepting it. The muscles on his limbs started to grow and develop. His legs and back become big and tough. Alright, it is finally completed, he thinks. He hears faint sounds from the ship. He knows that humanity is his enemy. He feels vibrations beyond the wall and faint footsteps. Knowing he doesn't have much time left and to avoid the bleak future rushing at him, RMC knows that he needs to evolve past the hatchling phases as soon as possible, and for that it is pivotal that he expands his range beyond just the cargo hold. At this moment now it is where it begins for him. He thinks it's time he steps out of this cargo hold, where he first stepped foot in at the start of his life. The MC wonders where he should go next. He thinks of an idea, knowing his already decided destination. He starts scurrying towards the ventilator. He wants to go to the cooling room next to the reactor. He knows that part of the ship is an important facility, so there won't be any visitors nearby or continuous traffic. It's sort of like a out of sight, out of mind type of thing. He decides if it doesn't work out, he can just wreck the reactor and the cooling room to escape. He pushes the ventilator vents and he climbs in the air ducts. Once in, he decides it's time to back his move. Before doing so, he gets petrified at what he's looking at. A metal high-speed fan spinning full speed that is blocking his way from freedom. He starts to sweat seeing this terrifying alternative. RMC unscrews the barrier from the fan. While standing in front of the fan, he wonders if he damages the ventilation fan, will the AI system report it to the humans? He decides he has no choice but to time his flight and pass through it. Nervously, he starts thinking now is the time to rely on his Morph abilities. Our MC starts using his hypersenses trait. He uses his skill on the fan. He starts analyzing it, noticing the properties of it and what's in the air surrounding it. His skills helps him analyze that the vent has worn joints of the rotating blades slowing down slightly at a specific point. His brain, after processing all the data, is telling him right now, this is the right time to jump through, as he thinks while diving towards the high-speed spinning metal fan. All or nothing as he flies through the metal fan, barely the fan touching the end of his tail as he comes through unscathed. He screams in his head that he is still alive while gasping for air. He decides to quickly move and sees a spider. Later on, while traveling through the air vent, our MC hears voices coming from one of the vents in a lit room. He heads towards the vents and peeks inside. He hears someone says, "What are the test results on subject 026? Another voice responds back saying, "Another failure." The original voice gets annoyed, saying the team leader will chew us out again. While looking over them, one of the crew members says that he is from Earth and even the captain's hands are tied. The other crew member gets pissed off and tells him, "Let's both call it a day here." While still continuing their conversation, our MC is stealth in the vents surveying them. He thought that this ship was a regular research vessel, and by looking at the designs it may be owned by Megacorp. He explains that Megacorp is a human faction flourishing around the solar system. Basically, they are based on Earthlings. Instead of governments, huge corporations rule the nations. Most of the population living in this nation are extreme materialists. Most of the human races in the game are neutral, but among them Megacorp leans toward more of an evil alignment. From observing the situation from what he witnessed, only Megacorp modifies healthy people into slaves. If they do that in-game, he can only imagine how it might be in actual reality. Once the room is cleared, he quickly flies in the laboratory and decides to scout, wondering what's in here. He starts using his hypersenses around him. He knows depending on what kind of research ship this is will change his evolutionary path. If it's a facility specialized in mutant super soldiers from ground combat, he would be able to attain a sturdier body and gain combat abilities as well. If the ship is experimenting on cult psychic powers, one of the slaves being from the space elf race, he would be able to obtain powerful psychic abilities. He personally prefers the cult side as a more viable option, but gaining psychic powers early is only wishful thinking. He hears a voice asking for help in his mind telepathically. He wonders who is asking for help. He peeks around and he sees a slime floating in a lab tube. The slime is telling him that he is in pain and he is in need of help. Our MC looking at the floating slime and notices that it's an amoeba. He analyzes the slime and sees his trait, his oxygen storage. It is the most useless trait for an amorph. He starts to use his hypersenses on the control panel of the machine, hoping to find clues. He sees an electricity coursing through the slime. He wonders if this is what the two researchers mentioned earlier. His hypersenses leads him to the button that is causing the electricity. He hits the button and the electricity stops in the lab tube. The slime thanks our MC for his action and he starts thinking of the slime recent words. Suddenly, he starts to take off, telling the slime to take care of himself. He flies towards the edge of the room, running behind some test subjects within their tube containers. Footsteps approach the door and people come inside the room. A lady holding a black feline cat in her hand is walking in the room. She's asking her laboratory assistant, who's nervously following behind her, when exactly will test subject 26 produce results. The lab assistant responds back and tells her that there is definitely reactions occurring. He asks if he could just get a little more time to, but suddenly gets interrupted by the female saying that time is credits, while turning her head and glaring at the assistant. She further goes on and tells him that they need results to report to the company before they reach their destination. She tells him if he doesn't produce results, the company may reconsider his employment. The guard lets out a gasp and gets terrified from her words while looking over his head at the floating heads in test tubes behind him. He tells her anything but that. She says his name, Senior Researcher Iway, and he responds back yes. She walks away. while talking, and tells him of course she doesn't want that outcome either, and she is also counting on her senior researcher as well. She tells him if he is able to draw out that aptitude from test subject 26, then a promotion to head researcher is assured. He lets out a yelp saying really. She tells him yes, at minimum head researcher. If this goes well, they may be able to gain connections on Mars' side. She tells him they have great interest in this project. The senior researcher gives out an idea asking about administering selonium. She thinks of the idea selonium. She rubs her cat's head, while thinking of the compound of it. It is an awakening drug made by the Star Union. It is a drug they haven't tried yet, while staring at the slime or number test subject number 26. She tells him there are a few other drugs they haven't tried yet either. They may have tried ones with similar compounds, but they never used selonium. She gives her senior researcher the go-ahead and to administer it immediately. He tells her to hold on, and without absorbing the neutralizer it may be life-threatening. She tells him regardless, results should have come out already from the test subject. He agrees with her, and she goes on and tells him he must understand how dire the situation is. He quickly tells her he understands and starts to administer it right away. He tells her he will start with 0.01 milligrams. He raises the dosage level more to 0.03 milligrams and higher to 0.05 milligrams. He raises it to 0.07 milligrams and receives a reaction. She tells her head senior researcher to wait. She explains seeing that there is a reaction they can increase the dosage and administer the dosage to full amount. He tries to tell her that may be a bit too much, but she just tells him to step aside and pushes the button. The selonium starts pouring into the tube. The slime is starting to become distorted and disfigured from the liquid being injected in it. He starts yelling out telepathically saying stop pain and that he is in need of help. He keeps screaming out in pain while the lady on watches in delight of the slime reaction. Our MC peering through the shadows only watches helplessly as the slime calls out in pain until it grows silent. The researcher lady looking at the test tube and says this is interesting results and that she wants her senior researcher to continue doing experiments on test subject 26. The slime looks completely disfigured from its original form and stretched out randomly, in odd places. She walks away telling him to report any meaningful results towards her. He reluctantly agrees to her request. In a moment notices she completely turns around and focuses her attention on some test tubes in the corner of the room. She pays it no mind and starts to leave out the laboratory. The MC, sweating in panic, thinks of the slime asking him for help just now. He feels uneasy, calling it unpleasant, and it really rubs him the wrong way the way they are doing this. He decided at that instant she will be dead in a few days. Meanwhile, deep inside the cooling reactor, our MC is seen regurgitating some type of saliva that is coming from his body. He spits out some green acid covering the walls. He thinks to himself, alright, this is complete. He uses his ability hypersenses and he starts to think the ship now feels like an extension of his own body. While meditating with hypersenses through his nest, he knows that information is most important for winning a war. Knowing where the enemies are at and what they are doing, where they are moving to and who they are talking to. This information is relayed to him through the liquid he spreads across the passages. This is his fourth day as a Morph on this research vessel, and now his nest is complete. After the MC completed his nest, he decides to travel between it and the cargo hold the past couple of days. He has been catching roaches and spiders as well in the process. Also spying on his target and gathering intel during gaps. Peering through the gaps, he notices that she is leaving at the same time again. The researcher lady named is Kisaragi Yujin, the research team leader of this ship. Our MC further goes on explaining that her body is weak, but she is the most important person here and a threat to his survival. He recalls 2 days ago there was an incident where a lab test subject escaped from its tube capsule, while chaos was ensuing on the vessel trying to locate the creature. Kisaragi created a tracking device within 2 hours and succeeded in recapturing the subject. If the test subject had used the ventilation ducts, he would have been endangered as well. He thinks he really needs to kill her as soon as possible. Suddenly Kisaragi does a quick look again, this time staring at the air vent. She thinks to herself that she feels gazes again. One of the guards accompanying her asks her, is there something wrong? She tells him it's nothing and for them to hurry. Our MC in the air ventilations is a complete wreck from almost being spotted by her. He thinks that she is unusually perceptive as a human being and wonders if she has some sort of psychic abilities. Psychic powers are an inherent trait from a cult race. It refers to one's abilities, commonly known as an SP, telepathy, or mind control, those sort of examples. It is a power similar to a superpower. Occasionally among humans exist rare individuals who are born with psychic potential. From the MC viewpoint, it doesn't matter whether Kisaragi has a talent or not. Aside, she is always being guarded by armed soldiers in an alert status. He wonders how can he deal with her. A new system notification suddenly appears before our MC. The new system tells him that he has acquired a new trait, paralyzing venom. He thinks of the new trait and knows it's a perfect attribute for someone like him since he has a fragile body. One drop of his venom can easily restrain a full human adult. The venom will work for 5 minutes, completely immobilizing the victim. For him to use his venom, he needs to be in a one-on-one situation, but it is difficult with the soldiers always being around. Just thinking about the situation gets him depressed, and moping around won't bring out any answers. He decides to leave the nest to unwind from his current predicament. Later on, he is back in the laboratory and is standing in front of the slime in the test tube. Our MC tells the slime he is looking better today than yesterday. He has brought his friend some more food, revealing the chocolate bars in which he is holding. He drops some of the crumbs within the compartment and the pieces gradually make their way through the tube, reaching the slime. The slime tells him back, "That's tasty," and gets delighted from receiving it. The MC recalls in the Survivor game that bubble amoebas didn't have any special abilities, but this one is unique. He wonders if the race has changed. The MC suddenly starts thinking back to Kisaragi and remembers that she has a cat. Now that he thinks about it, he remembers as a human he also had a strong attachment to cats. He wonders if the cat suddenly dies, won't it expose a major weak point? Plus, unlike Kisaragi, that cat is alone in the room except when she's there. He decided he will use the cat as a bait to lure Kisaragi. Later on in Kisaragi room, you can see the cat yawning and wriggling around on the bed. The MC, watching the cat from the vent, recalls the cat name being Caesar, and he is truly living as an emperor. No wonders he's chubby, only eating premium meat every day. Seeing this, he knows Kisaragi Yujin isn't any ordinary person. He thinks killing the cat outright wouldn't be hard since he is right there. But he knows he couldn't do it here either. The ventilation duct entrance looks fine externally, but his hypersenses are showing line densely with laser senses coming from it. He knows even a light touch will trigger the AI alarm system immediately. He thinks he is stuck here at this point. Frustrated, he hits the ground with his tail, letting out a big bang. The sound of the bang caught the attention from the cat, which causes it to run to the ventilation vent. The cat lets out a terrifying shriek, causing the MC to panic. The cat hisses and tries to break through the vent. The guards, reacting to the noise, comes and wonders what is going on. They see the cat scratching at the air vent. One of the guards says it's just the cat, while the other co-signs, saying, again, as a question. They get mad and tell them to just leave the cat, while our MC is in the fright of his life from the scare. He couldn't believe he made such a mistake using his tail to attract the attention of the cat. He starts dwelling on it a little bit more, then suddenly he comes up with an idea. He thinks back at the situation and remembers the cat looking bored. Stimulation from the noise caused the cat to react to the noise. The soldiers' reactions of not paying the cat any attention. Our MC starts to concoct a diabolic plan thanks to the variables given to him. He says he figured out how to deal with this. The cat is seen snoozing off in his owner's bed. She hears some noise coming from the vent and starts to open her eyes. The noise attracts the attention of the cat to check it out. Peering inside the air ducts, the cat sees a helpless cockroach lying on the ground. The cat gets amazed of seeing this and put his palms on the vent, causing it to fall down. The cat, intrigued and excited, quickly jumps into the vent, ready to start an adventure. The soldiers guarding the door, hearing the banging noise coming from the room, pay it no mind and say it's the cat and that they will check it out later. They question where could the cat go anyway with us guarding the door like this. The cat is traveling through the air duct system, encountering new dead roaches and playing with them as he travels. Caesar peers down the air duct to see a longer passage. The cat travels down the passage and ends up into a big open storage unit room. The cat looks surprises and does a welcoming meow which echoes throughout the room. As the cat peers into the room, he sees a squirming cockroach facing him. The squirming cockroach has the cat attention as Caesar reaches to play with the roach. RMC is above it, lunging at it with its tail. The cat, getting pierced in the back by the tail, lets out a terrifying meow scream. The cat back is now broken from the piercing attack of the MC tail, causing it to wiggle in agony while he only watches from above at this point. The cat, now paralyzed from the poison, can only soon accept her fate. RMC starts to eat the cat. While making some satisfying noises from the first couple of bites, he curses in his mind and realizes that this is delicious. Sometime later, Kisaragi is seen walking through the halls with her guards, and she is looking like a nervous wreck. She walks towards the captain and asks him when can she see Caesar again, looking visibly distressed. The captain responds telling her that the soldiers are searching, so if she can only wait just a little bit longer. Research leader Kisaragi slams her hand on the counter, yelling it's already been 2 hours. She says her Caesar strictly follows mealtimes and knows something must have happened. The captain tries to reassure Kisaragi, telling her again that this is a spaceship. Unless the cat hijacked and escaped using the rescue ship, he has to be somewhere on the ship. She starts yelling more, telling him that this is more of a reason to find him right away. He clarifies, saying what he means is that waiting will yield good results. He thinks all this fuss over a damn cat. The captain continues on, thinking to himself, saying if she wasn't from the noble capital he would lock her in solitary confinement right now. She then questions the captain, the guards. Wondering what about the guards that were guarding the door. He tells her they were all detained. From the regulated procedures once we reach out destination. Before he could continue, the research leader with an intimidating tone tells the captain to execute the guards immediately. The captain, shocked by the research leader words, couldn't process what she just said. With a crazed look, Kisaragi stares down on the captain, telling him the captain has the authority for summary judgment rights. She is requesting for him to exercise that authority now. He tries to calm her down, saying this action may be too extreme. He further on explains executions over this will only upset the soldiers. She gets face to face to the captain. With a look that looks like she doesn't give a mental F. She repeats is his word, phrasing this back to him. He recorrects his word choice further, trying to clarify, meaning that after the search progresses to some extent, then maybe it would be better to discuss the punishment then. The onlookers, hearing the conversation, get nervous for the captain. Kisaragi reminds the captain that he forgot the reason this happened is because the guards didn't do their job properly. The captain, with defeat, tells the research leader that he understands and will tighten discipline. She thinks of his words and starts to depart, telling him she will be back in 2 hours. She turns around instead and tells him if he fails to produce results by then, it would be best if he stepped down as captain of the ship. Kisaragi, fuming from this, leaves the captain corridors. Once clear, the captain curses and bangs his hand on the countertop. He shouts, "Where the hell is that damn cat?" RMC, who is watching the whole string of events from the air duct, repeats the captain question, thinking he is already inside his stomach. From eating the cat, he remembers he gained a new gene fragment, Wild Instinct. He wonders what identity is this new trait. Remembering from the game, there was a trait fusion system. It was a system that fuses related traits into a single powerful trait. After using the system so much, he memorized all the fusion formulas in the game. That's why when he was preying on the cat, the notification appeared. This is the reason he was at a loss of words. Since this trait was never even seen before, even if he is a veteran gamer. With the newly acquired trait, Wild Instinct has been applied. The system asks if he wants to fuse this trait with an existing trait, Hypersenses. He decides to fuse the two traits, and it has now evolved into a new trait called Predator Instincts. With Predator Instincts, Hypersenses traits has been enhanced. He can sense impending threats based on possessed information. A tip is given to telling him that great hunters know how to foresee the future. RMC tried activating the new trait to sense danger. His hypersenses ability has become stronger, yet the expected foresight effect didn't trigger anything. He figures it probably is a passive type trait that activates automatically, and since no threat was present it wouldn't be able to activate. For right now he will study this new trait later and wonders what the research leader is up to. He thinks that she is probably losing her mind this very moment. A hand slams the table while our MC watches the research leader, visibly frustrated. She yells that the stabilization is taking too long. Our MC, while watching her, plots that everything is going as expected. She is one of the type who shows humanity only towards the things she cherishes. When stuff gets taken from people like her, they tend to lose their damn minds. He smiles cheekily, knowing he also achieved his second goal as well. That is driving barrier between Kisaragi Yujin and the guards escorting her. This incident has created a huge rift between them. From the start the guards did not like the cat. They had to watch all the finest meat they couldn't taste go towards the cat. They got used to seeing the cat eat 3 fine meals every day. So it's normal for people to get angry. The essence is probably closer to anger over the class of Yujin. Kisaragi is from the megacore top-class noble capital. From the soldiers' perspective, they have no choice but only to bear the absurd injustice. Protesting her also has direct consequences too. Ultimately they ended up taking their anger out on the cat. Basically the cat played the role of a buffer. What happens once the buffer disappears and they start to go through useless hardship? To find something that they hated so much. He wonders if the soldiers will still devote themselves to protecting her like before. Not only that, Kisaragi no longer trusts the soldiers as well. To her the guard's negligence was the sole reason her beloved went missing. Our MC smiles and thanks the cat for this opportunity. He peers down on her some more and says the time has now come to take Kisaragi Yujin's genetic fragments. She takes off angrily from the table and starts heading straight towards the lab control system. She starts clicking buttons and sets off the electricity in the tube, causing the test subject to suffer. She continues setting off each test tube until they were all being electrocuted together. She stops and looks at the amoeba and tells it right you as well. With an evil grin she presses the button, causing the slime figure to distort from the electricity. The slime in pain screams telepathically, telling it to stop and that it is in pain. It continues to scream help until it goes unconscious and numb. Kisaragi, who is still pissed, decides to leave the room. Our MC, frustrated from what he just witnessed, only stares through the vents. The slime wakes up and calls out to the MC, telling him hello. Our MC looks at him and hurriedly scurries away from the vent, leaving him. He knows conversation between them is unnecessary right now. Rather than saying a few words of comfort, he decided to give the amoeba what it really needs. Revenge. Meanwhile, back in the captain room, research leader Kisaragi appears before the captain, telling him it has been 2 hours and what are the results. He goes on telling her that they just commenced the search team. The captain further on tells her to please wait just a little more. Before he could finish, the research leader grits her teeth and says Captain. Taking back Captain, she recollects herself and calls him by his name, Samuel Yu. She asks him if he is defying a noble capital's will. With a dark, ill-mannered expression. The captain tells her that he is the ship's captain team leader, so she needs to watch what she says. She tells him that she could make him step down from his captain position. The captain corrects her, telling her even noble capital cannot tolerate overstepping authority. He tells her due to her actions he has the right to detain her. The research leader repeats the captain words, asking him did he really just say he would detain her. The captain tells her it's his right to detain those who disturb order. She tells him has he lost his mind. Our MC, listening to the two exchange words, thinks to himself the situation is getting more interesting. It must have been a conflict between them before he started watching, he thinks. Kisaragi storms out the captain's room and is heading through the spaceship accompanied by her guards. She spots the bathroom and realizes she needs to use it. She tells them she is heading towards the bathroom and she will be right back. They respond saying yes, while she slams the door. The other guard tells his peer he also has to use the bathroom too and that he will be right back. Our MC, seeing this, realize this is a chance, and hurriedly runs through the vents in destination to the women's bathroom. As traveling through the vents, he thinks about how normally one of the guards would follow her in the bathroom as well, but seems like he was stressed all day and didn't want to go in with her. Plus, one of the other guards went to the bathroom as well. With this, she has been left all alone in the women's restroom. Additionally, there is no security equipment in the restroom to hinder the MC's movement. This is a perfect chance for an ambush, he thinks. He peers through the air duct to see Kisaragi facing down towards the sinks. He can't miss this opportunity. As he pushes through the vent, he scales the bathroom ceiling, getting himself in position. While directly above her, Kisaragi is washing her face, trying to calm herself down. After drying her face, she lets out a sigh of relief. She suddenly hears a sound. A daunting sound that causes chills to shiver down her spine. She quickly looks around to see where is the sound coming from. Suddenly she turns and she sees a creature lunging towards her with its tail. She lets out a desperate yelp and deflects the tail from hitting her while stumbling backwards. Before she even could try to gather herself, our MC is too quick and lunges at her again. This time successfully piercing the back of her neck. Before she could yell, the poison infiltrated her bloodstream, causing her to start foaming from the mouth. She starts choking from the poison and collapses towards the ground. She opens her eyes to see water, or what looks like saliva, dripping in front of her. She's terrified as she starts to look up to see an alien creature gazing right above her head. At this point, our MC wonders, what is she feeling right now? Is it fear towards the alien creature she saw, or is it anger at her current situation? Or is it the fear of death? Ultimately, it doesn't matter. Kisaragi Yujin dies regardless. He tells her farewells as he engulfs her entire head into his mouth. He bites down and starts to feel the blood oozing in his mouth. The moment her genetic information from the blood reached his brain, he felt it. The one piece of the puzzle of his potential had clicked into place. A system notification has appeared before our MC, asking him does he wish to evolve. Before our MC could click yes on the system, a vision occurs. It shows our MC being caught by one of the guards while still eating Kisaragi. Our MC is soon being blasted by a barrage of bullets and killed as a result. Soon the flashback ends. Our MC, now sweating from the vision, wonders, what was that just now? He wonders if that could have been predator instinct straight telling him, and wonders if this is how it functions. If predator instincts is right, then the guards will be coming in soon. He thinks to himself, should he run, and decides no, there isn't enough time. He quickly climbs up the wall to hide while the guard is coming through the door. Once the guard enters, he instantly gets frail of what he just seen. He sees the research leader beheaded and lying in a pool in her own blood. He starts trembling, what is this? And before he could say any more, our MC sneaks up from behind him and lands on his shoulder. The guard notices our MC, but before he could even react, our MC uses his tail and drives it through the guard helmet, resulting in an instant death. With both people now dead lying in the bathroom, our MC takes off to the vents, not knowing when the last guy will return. He doesn't know if they have unexpected tracking methods, but just to be cautious, he decides to take a roundabout back to the nest. Back at the nest, he checks his surroundings and realizes the coast is clear. With that being said, he brings up the system notification and continues where he left off before he got interrupted. He presses yes on the system notification and the evolution begins to commence. His body and form starts to dissolve and a cocoon begins to form around him. In the cocoon, he can still think. He wonders if he had memories from the fetal stage, would it feel like this? The sensation of becoming a completely different entity feels really good. The fluids are rebuilding him into something alien. He wants to open his eyes to see directly, but it's nearly impossible. The moment he entered the cocoon, he lost control over all bodily functions. He has done everything he could and now he has to wait leisurely, sometime later inside the cooling reactor. Some movement starts to occur inside the cocoon. It begins to split open. A new creature emerges from inside it, standing on two legs. Our MC, who is now in a new AlienX type form, checks out the new changes of his body. He lets out a terrifying roar as he welcomes the inevitable onslaught. Thank you for watching. For part 2, just write in the comments part 2. For more updates, hit the subscribe button. And thank you for watching.